Now I want to just show really quickly what's cool about Fleet as an MDM. So here we're looking at the details for my laptop. We can see lots of the base information about the laptop, how much disk is available, what operating system is installed, my serial number, IP addresses, the users that are installed, the software that's installed, along with information about which pieces of software are vulnerable and what's been used recently, the queries that Fleet's running on the device, and the compliance of the device with policies defined in my organization. So here to dive into the actual MDM capability, let's look at this. So the automatic update downloads are not enabled on this device. Well, we can look at the macOS settings that are applied. Looks like we don't have any configuration profiles set up for that. So we'll pop up our iMazing profile editor, and I've got a profile configured to turn on automatic updates. So I'm going to save that profile, and I'm going to add that to my Git repo and do a git commit. So I'll make the commit, I'll push it up to GitHub, and then let's switch over to GitHub to take a look at what's going on here. So when I refresh the actions workflow, I've got a GitHub action set up automatically when the push happens to apply the new profiles to the Fleet instance. Now, probably in a production scenario, what you would want to do is have this work only after the pull request has been merged. But in this case, for the demo, we're making it work a bit quicker and doing it right when the commit has been pushed. So what we're seeing is we install the Fleet Control command line tool, and then we run the Fleet Control apply command. So that's actually done already. So now if we switch back over to here and we refresh the page, we see that the turn on automatic updates profile has actually already been applied. So that happens super quick. Now our policy is still showing that it failed, and I'll note that by default these policies update every hour. So this was last updated about 23 minutes ago. Let's run a refetch on that. And we see that the policy is now succeeding. So we can see both the check that the policy has been applied via profile and the double check that we actually verified through an OS query that the policy is happening. Now, while looking at this, I think it might also be interesting to take a look at the other ways that policies can be used. So for example, let's say that we've decided it's an organizational policy that you can't use Microsoft Teams. So let's go for a select from apps where the name is like Microsoft Teams. And we can try running this policy just to see how it's working. So I'm going to target my own host there. And we'll see what the results look like. So actually we've written this policy to check that Teams is installed. So let's fix up the policy. try running it again. So now we've got the right policy because I actually do have Teams installed on this machine. So let's save this policy. And we'll provide resolution steps for the end user of the device. We'll say that this checks on macOS, and this isn't a critical policy. So we save the policy, and now if we come back over to my host, and we do a refetch again, this would update every hour on its own. Then we see again the device is failing a policy. Now what I want to do is show you what this looks like actually for the end user. So right now we see me logged in as myself here in Fleet. Let me open an incognito window and show you what it looks like for the end user. So they see up here Fleet Desktop and information about their device. If they click on this, they see almost the same view as what I was seeing there, and they can see the failing policy as well and the remediation instructions for that. So please uninstall Teams. Now if I were to uninstall Microsoft Teams as the end user, I could then do a refetch just like we saw before that the admin does and know that things were resolved there. Of course, like most MDMs, there's also lots of great rolled up information here. We've got segmentation across different groups of hosts through the Teams features, and we can also manage who has access to which hosts by controlling the permissions on a global basis or on a per team basis. So it's a really powerful set of controls that you have. We can enforce macOS updates with nudge, and of course we can apply the disk encryption settings and any other custom profiles that we like. So if we don't want to use the GitOps workflow, we can also just come in here to delete the profiles or upload new profiles.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today for our GitOps webinar here. If you have any questions, please feel free to throw those in the chat. While we wait for a few questions, Kathy, what are some of your top uses for Fleet?
I'm going to be honest, my top personal use is checking on my grandma's computer when she says that there's something going wrong with it. But professionally, I think it's just great to have something to watch the watchers. Make sure that everything that I've implemented from an MDM standpoint, whether that's through Fleet or someone else, is there and working, and everything's where I expect it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Watching the watchers and keeping track on family members' computers is always fun. So it's nice to have an inside baseball on what's going on while they're explaining something completely different, right? So again, if you have any questions about the GitOps workflow that you just saw, feel free to drop those in the chat. We'll be sure to answer those for you. While we wait for that, we can talk about some of the frequently asked questions that we do get. I know one that I've seen and had asked a lot is how else can you leverage GitOps with Fleet? And I know that enrollment profiles is just one use case for this workflow. There's a few others, right?
Yeah, definitely. I've got one workflow set up. That one obviously going to be a Fleet Premium feature, but I can automatically add a team by pushing a file into a folder in Git, which is pretty awesome. You can also set up automations for anything that you can do with a configuration file with Fleet. So applying agent options, adding new queries, anything along those lines you can accomplish through a GitOps workflow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And taking it on the MDM side, I know you can control the setup screens now, and that's all in a JSON file, so that can also be managed through that GitOps workflow. And it's nice having the repository there. It's easy to revert back because it is in a repo like that. But it's also nice to have kind of those checks and balances on the process. So other questions that we do get about this is does Fleet support file vault? And I know the short answer is yes for that, but how it goes about doing that is pretty straightforward. Either in using Fleet control at the command line or in the UI, we do escrow that file vault key in case you need it to recover a machine at a later date.
One nice thing there is that with the activity feed, you've got it right in front of your face. If someone does access one of those encryption keys, it's going to show up on the homepage of Fleet that somebody accessed that specific key, which is awesome in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really nice to have a paper trail, even if it's digital and virtual, in this day and age, of who's accessing what and what's being done with that. So yeah, very, very, very cool.
I think that right there is one of the big advantages of using GitOps workflows wherever you can, is having that version control, having an extra set of eyes approving things before they actually get applied. So you've got both accountability and the ability to roll things back when you need to.
Yeah, that blame button is my favorite. Yeah, who did this is always my favorite when I'm looking at a Git repo. Is who made this crazy decision to make a pull request on this? Normally my name is associated with it, so that's all well and good. Let's see. Well, again, if you have questions about this, feel free to drop them in the chat. And we do have a question about what the expected behavior for a computer that already has file vault enabled and then disk encryption profile is delivered. And we actually did this recently internally here at Fleet. So we're all very familiar with this, and we eat our own dog food, so to speak, on that. So what happens is the user is prompted from Fleet Desktop to basically enable the process to decrypt and re-encrypt and set and escrow the new key into Fleet. It's a pretty straightforward and easy process for that. Kathy's dropping those links into our documentation on what the guide for enabling disk encryption and file vault. into the chat as well. So thank you, Kathy. Multitasker extraordinaire. Again, if you have other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat here. Thanks for that last question there. The other thing that we get is a frequently asked question that we get a lot is what is the benefit over some of the other MDM solutions out there? And I think one of the biggest benefits that I see is that we have built Fleet from the ground up to be GitOps enabled, and that instead of, you know, a lot of the other platforms out there have kind of had to strap on an API and you know, bootstrap getting things working, and we have ensured that from the ground up you can do everything from the command line, and ClickOps is the last thing on our mind when we're putting features together and operations together for that. Again, the listener lines are open. Feel free to drop a comment in the chat there, and we'll be happy to answer any of those questions. Otherwise, you just get more of me answering some of the frequently asked questions that we've had here in the past. I know I've had a lot of questions about when Windows MDM and Linux MDM are coming. And while if we promise an actual date, we will miss that by a mile. But we are hoping for Q4 for Windows and 2024 for Linux. But don't hold me to that because again, if I give you a deadline, we're going to miss it. That's just how software development works for that, unfortunately. So, and as we build out the Linux MDM, we're really interested in what features folks are looking for in Linux device management for that. So feel free to drop into any of the forums that we monitor, whether it's the Mac admins or the OS Query Slacks, and give us your feedback on what you'd like to see for Linux MDM. All right, one more question here. Let's see, the question is are there conditions where the file vault key may need to be escrowed more than once? Like after X amount of days, the user will have to enter the password to generate a new key. And that's a interesting question. I'm trying to understand the scenario where that would be required. And to be honest, nothing comes top of mind. Having done file vault key escrow for quite some time, I've never personally run into this instance, but I'd be interested to have more details about this type of scenario and why that might be needed for that. Because generally, once the key is escrowed, unless you're cycling keys, forcing a cycle on keys, which is not a great thing to do for user experience personally. I don't see a scenario where they would need to go back through this process once it's been escrowed. Well, thank you for that question. And again, please feel free to drop us more details on that. I'd love to have more background on where this scenario might arise. And if you have other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat here in LinkedIn. So while we wait for other questions, Kathy, what's one of your favorite features in Fleet?
I am a big fan of the webhooks in general. I like that we've got some built-in integrations for like Jira and Zendesk, but it can be really useful to have a lot more control over how tickets created and what you want to do with certain bits of data. So I've been playing around a lot with times and kind of doing fun stuff with the webhook triggering workflows that then like gather data up that I might need. It's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. What about you, JD?
Yeah, I was going to say it's really not GitOps related, but it is part of our UI is the built-in query builder that makes it easy to see the over 300 baked-in tables for OS query, and makes it really easy to build those queries and find that little nugget of information that you're trying to query off of your fleet of computers. So I really love that interface and helps me really sanity check my SQL as I artisanally craft my SQL statements.
Definitely. Terrible at remembering the column names, so having that there definitely agree is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, we'll stick around for a few more questions here, and meanwhile, I'll keep interviewing Kathy here to see what some of the other uses that you've seen for GitOps workflow with Fleet and OS query.
I mean, realistically, the big one that we see frequently is managing the saved queries. We've worked with customers who have some really awesome setups for automatically generating content that gets appended to the end of a query YAML, and then sent over to GitHub, automatically reviewed. I actually saw someone is working on pulling the query and running the built-in OS query performance testings before approving the pull request, which I thought was really neat.
That's a really cool workflow. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity to verify and validate that those queries that you're going to send down aren't going to really impact your fleet before doing that, because some of those can really be impactful on the computers that they're being sent to, especially if it's a live query for that. I think one of the other interesting scenarios I've seen is basically building a script that calls the API, our REST API, to see what profiles are installed, and then also calling on OS query to make sure those settings are also set in place. So kind of giving yourself a verification on that. Kind of a cool use case as well.
I think it's fun because those automated workflows really give Fleet the chance to be whatever it is you need it to be, without having to get in and modify the source code, even though you could if you wanted to.
Right, we're completely open source, so you can see exactly what is going on. You can also see exactly where we're at in development, and definitely, like, our entire repo is open and those issues are out there. So if you see something and you have feedback or more information that might help that feature along, you can join in, quote unquote, join in the fun and make comments and contribute directly. Fleet, it really is a big community. I'm the community advocate for Fleet, and we really love to see that interaction when we have community members and Fleet users, paid or free. We don't care contributing. It means the world to us, and it just makes Fleet a better product. So we really appreciate that for sure. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions in the comments here. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up for today. But again, feel free to reach out to us. We are in the OS Query Slack and the Mac Admin Slack under the Fleet channel for that. And we also are on the social medias as well. And thanks definitely for hanging out with us today and exploring GitOps with Fleet.